start to believe. Listen to your heart, tell me that you understand, 'cause you are the one for me. If you just believe, 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 believe. Listen to your heart, 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 heart. Listen to your heart, 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 heart. Listen to your heart, tell me who you wanna be. We can always start to believe. Listen to your heart, tell me that you understand, 'cause you are the one for me. You just believe, you just believe, you just believe, you just believe. Listen to your heart, tell me who you wanna be. We can always start to believe. Listen to your heart, tell me that you understand, 'cause you are the one for me.
Good evening, people. Welcome back to the channel for another stream. We haven't gone live in about a week or so we wanted to check in with you. We wanted to see how all of you are doing. Obviously, I've been uploading videos on my own on the channel, giving my thoughts on the topics and interesting pieces of news that have come out surrounding Manchester City in the last week or so. But it's only right to give the two lads with me as well their thoughts. It's very much their channel and their platform as well. So I want to hear what they have to say. I want to hear what you all in the chat have to say. If you haven't done so already, do smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are now about 92 subscribers away from the big 5K. 92 subs. We're getting close. Keep showing love. Keep smashing the likes. Keep sharing it around. Keep telling your mates to subscribe, and we'll hit 5K together. As I always say, this community, this channel is for you lot to come in and give your thoughts on what is going on in the world of the Premier League and when the time comes, Champions League too. So get in your thoughts. We're going to talk, I suppose, mainly about Manchester City because it's a City channel, but I do want to touch on the title race as well because that's obviously a massive talking point right now. Arsenal being 8 points clear. We have tough games coming up. They have tough games coming up. There's about 19, 20 games to go. A lot of football to be played. Are we out of the race? Can we still win it? You lot tell me in the chat. We're going to have the conversation here as well. But like I said, I want to talk about our form. I know Joe and Dara have been cooking. They've been bubbling things. When I said, let's go live tonight, I said, this is what we're going to talk about. I know they both kind of prepared notes or they gathered their thoughts and what they want to say. So let's have the chat. And you all get your thoughts down below in the comments. I think in the last 5 games, we have won 2. And we've drawn 1, I believe, as well. So we're on the exact same run of form as the same team we play on Thursday, Tottenham Hotspur. We are in crap form right now. Let's call a spade a spade. This is a therapy session, people. This is for City fans to come in and have a therapy session. Even if you're a rival fan, get your thoughts in on how we're doing. Tell us about your club and yada, 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 all the good stuff. Therapy session. Bad form, poor results, out of the Carabao, 8 points behind Arsenal. Still in the FA Cup, but we play Arsenal. Still in the Champions League. The team's not playing well. I did a video that came out today or yesterday about Haaland and potentially using the false 9 system again, inverting wingers and issues. I know Joe and Dara, particularly Joe, has very strong opinions on some of the City players, and I'm genuinely curious to hear it. So make sure you smash the like button, people. Get your seatbelt on. We're gonna have an honest conversation here. I think we're gonna look at ourselves in the mirror. We're gonna pretend we're the Man City team and look at ourselves in the mirror and say, where has this all gone wrong? How have we got to this point? Now, I will say, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I don't think it's finished. Well, we're not sitting here saying, City are crap, we're finished, Pep out, players out. No, we're just having an honest conversation. We might even come to a resolution. We might offer solutions as to how these things can be fixed. So get in your thoughts. Right, lads. I suppose let's not throw it back too far, but Southampton, yeah? We'll start off with Southampton because, as I said after that game on my review and in the Big Six, it is the worst performance I have ever seen under Pep Guardiola. It is the worst performance I've ever seen from a Manchester City team under Pep Guardiola. We didn't just not create anything, or it's not as if we created stuff and didn't put away our chances. We were embarrassed. We were completely taking the piss out of it by the bottom of the Premier League team. Forget new manager bounce, forget all that kind of stuff from Southampton. We should not be going to St. Mary's and getting embarrassed. Why don't you start off, Joe? Tell me your thoughts, not specifically on that game, but why has it turned out like that? Why are we going to places like that right now and getting the piss taken out of us by bums?
To be honest, I genuinely do not have an answer as to why. There's so many different reasons that I can point to that don't help, but there's not like one standout reason as to why we're playing so bad. I mean, I didn't expect this. I thought after the World Cup there'd be no more distractions and we'd try and kick on, and that just hasn't happened. And again, I don't really know why. I mean, I don't often take notes, but I have this time. That's how bad it's gotten. I never prepare for these. I just usually wing it. I had to go and look into this to make sure that my eyes weren't deceiving me, and it was as bad as I thought it was. And I mean, just looking at some of the things that I have written down, we played 7 games since the World Cup. We've won 4. We've lost 2. 2 of those wins came in the Cup. 1 against Chelsea, 1 against Liverpool, which was the first game. We lost the bottom of the league without having a shot on target. We drew with a team that is now joint bottom or second bottom in Everton. We drew at home against those. We had 1 shot on target at Old Trafford against Man United and lost. You can point your fingers at the officiating and say we were robbed, but the fact of the matter is we weren't good enough anyway. If we were good enough, then maybe we're talking about a different outcome regardless of the refereeing situation. And I'm just looking at it and going, it's absolutely dreadful. I mean, if we just generalise the whole season, again, I had to make sure that I wasn't just forgetting something, just forgetting some run that we might have been on. But I haven't. I looked back, all the fixtures, I counted up. Our longest winning streak in all competitions is 6 games. We've only won 6 games in a row this season. Our longest winning streak in the Premier League, bearing in mind we are halfway into the Premier League season, our longest winning run in the Premier League is 3 games. We've only won 3 league games in a row, maximum. That's poor. We used to be going on 14-game winning runs. We're not even doing half of that in all competitions. It's just simply not good enough. And of course, you could point to the whole break during mid-season and go, there might have been distractions, but we just haven't picked up. Those distractions have gone. There's nothing until the end of the season. I think there's one more international break, but it's not for a while. There's nothing to be focused on apart from winning as many games as possible, and we're not doing that. And I mean, the 2 main reasons for me is we're simply just not creating enough. We've got too many players that are off form and seemingly can't find form, even when, you can. There was obviously people were saying people like De Bruyne, he looks tired. He gets a rest against Chelsea. He gets, he only plays 1 half against Southampton. He comes back and he still looks no different. And we're struggling to create. And the main thing for me is the defence. We're not keeping clean sheets. Again, those 7 games since the World Cup, we get 2 clean sheets. 2 above against Chelsea. Chelsea, who are in 10th. Chelsea, who lost to Fulham. They're in a bad run of form themselves. They're the only clean sheets we have. We didn't keep a clean sheet against bottom and second bottom. It's not good enough. And I think it kind of speaks volumes, really, that, again, I added to my notes this morning because I actually saw it, that we've had 11 different defensive lines. We've had 11 different back fours. 11. What? We're only halfway into the season. It's like there's no time for the team to gel. We had a Kanji's come in. He's new. He hasn't had time to gel with anyone because he's having a different partner every week. He's got a different fullback beside him. Sometimes he's playing at right back. Foden's been playing as a left wing back at times. We haven't been able to settle on anything, which is really costing us at the moment. We can't settle on a team because the defensive line keeps changing. We went to United, we played a back 4. I'm looking at Spurs and going, well, that back 4 is probably going to be completely different. We're going to see something else. We've played a back 4 a couple of times with Foden at wing back. We can't settle on anything. And that, ultimately, of course, it's not like sack the manager or anything, far from it, but that does boil down to Pep Guardiola. He has to figure out what he wants to do going forward. He has to figure out who he wants to play back there. You've got to sort something out. We're not keeping enough clean sheets. There was the age-old saying from Ferguson, wasn't there, that, attack can win your games, but defence is win your titles. We're not defending.
I know, and this has been a problem that we've been talking about all season, is that there's no consistency in Pep's selection. And we can talk about tactics, and we'll probably get into tactics and what we do like and what we don't like about what Pep's doing most of which is what we don't like, because there's a lot of what I don't like in what Pep's doing right now. There's too much change. But the first thing that he can fix, without even going near tactics, the first thing that he can fix and implement is a consistent selection. You know, when you look at Arsenal's team, this, you know, champions elect team, they're looking strong. I said last night in the Big Six, they're moving like a steam train. Every game they go into, they play the same, they steamroll the same, they look no different. And what can you say about them? You can pick the team. You can tell who's going to play for Arsenal the day before the day before the game. You know who the back four is going to be, you know who the midfield is going to be, and you know who the front three is going to be, pending no injuries. And even if they do have a few injuries, you know exactly who's going to slot in where. Pep Guardiola refuses to do that. Pep Guardiola, I don't know, is it through he's not happy with performances? I don't know, is it because he feels some players are better against different opposition? Or is it that he's trying to just, you know, confuse the opposition manager, keep them on their toes, which doesn't seem to be an effective strategy at all? We don't have consistent selection. And you're right when you say the defense is a massive worry. Something that we have taken pride in for a number of years is, even when we had no Vince and company, was at least our defense was usually quite strong. Even with Fernandinho at centre half, we weren't the best, but in my opinion, it was probably more assured and strong. And you can trust it a little bit more than you can trust right now. I appreciate that Akanji and Ake are both decent ball-playing centre halves. Ake is decent at one-on-ones, and Akanji is too. But there's nothing gives me more comfort than seeing Ruben Diaz on the pitch. And we got the news today that Ruben Diaz and John Stones are both back in training. And whatever you think about Ruben Diaz, whether he's had a bit of a fall-off or not, he has those leadership qualities that we don't have right now in the team. How many players can you look at that played against Man United and you can say they are leaders? You can trust them. They're going to pull us through the trenches. I would rather have a player on the pitch who isn't as technically gifted as everybody else, but is an absolute warrior. Someone like an Andy Robertson. I don't like Andy Robertson. He's annoying to play against. He's not the best technical footballer, but the fucker's a leader. Zinchenko, not the best player in the world. He does have talent. He's got a good ability, but we know he's not the best left back in the world. But what gets him into these starting 11 teams, what's won him Premier Leagues and got him into Pep's selection, was the fucker has grit. The fucker gives a bollocks. When it's time to show up, he shows passion. There's nobody against Man United, bar maybe Rodri, Walker to a lesser extent, and certainly Jack Grealish, tried to show any element of leadership. Ruben Diaz has that written all over him. So him coming back in, I want him to have the captain's armband. I don't want De Bruyne to have the captain's armband. De Bruyne is not a fucking leader. Unbelievable footballer on his day. And he has been for a long, long time. Poor performances recently. If there's one thing De Bruyne is not, it's a leader. We need an absolute leader who's not afraid to be vocal, not afraid to get stuck into another player. We need warriors, man. We need warriors right now, because we're coming into the grit end of the season where it really matters. I mean, Rebel, what are you saying?
There's, I'd say minimum about 5 reasons as to why you can put this down to it. But you mentioned Arsenal's whole team selection thing. Arsenal also have a set tactic. Arsenal play the same in the majority of games. We don't. We've gone between different sort of wingers, different sort of fullbacks, even different sort of fucking centre-backs and how they drop in the last, since we got back from the World Cup. I'm looking at Arsenal. They play the same every week. They have Ben White playing right back, who doesn't get up as much. They have Zinchenko there, who's dropping into the middle of the park, doing more stuff than Ben White do. Like how we used to play, like our tactic that got us through hundreds of games. But now it's so inconsistent. It's not just the personnel, it's the way we're trying to play. You see fullbacks lining up differently every single week now, and we're not gelling. Nothing's there to gel. The only person who's been consistent throughout this season, because his job is always the same as Rodri. Rodri is the only man who's been consistent for the whole season. It's because nothing is really changing with him. You have to look at the rest of it now. We're trying to get Haaland more involved. That's not the type of player he is. I took a look at the average position on Saturday. He was playing behind 2 players. There were 2 players playing up further than Erling Haaland, the striker. He's dropping back into holding midfield. It's not working for him at all. Like, where was he playing at the start of the season? Where was his best position where he's getting all these goals? It's up front. It's not trying to drop in and be more involved. Like, that's not it at all. His bread and butter is his goal scoring, and he's not in those positions. He was barely in those positions, at least. But when he is, he tends to score, which is wild to me. A lot of players aren't turning up. You have to look at this. I know Joe's gonna say it's better than De Bruyne. I'm gonna go around that. Bernardo Silva, Joe Cancelo. There's multiple boys who've gone to this World Cup who haven't come back the same. You have to point fingers at the break. The break as well has taken the wind out of the sails. There wasn't even much wind in the sails to begin with, but it's completely gone. We can't string together even 2 good performances. I thought Leeds again was one decent, it was one good half of football. The rest of it was just wasteful. We aren't looking good. Like you just mentioned, we have very similar run, if not the same, to Spurs, and they're being looked at as if they're in disaster mode, crisis mode. Conte's about to leave. We're not being looked like that by whether it be ourselves or Sky Sports. We're in the exact same run of form as them. We're not playing well. We're not playing well. Tottenham are also not playing well. But I don't want to play them. I don't want to play anyone. The only time I've looked at a game going, I genuinely want to play that is Chelsea, because they've won one game in the last six. It's not spelling good for us. Like, that's just the form bit as well. There are multiple individuals, and maybe even Pep himself, to blame for this. Like, there's plenty of blame to go around the minute.
Pep has to take blame. Pep absolutely has to take blame. And I know there's a lot of City fans that for some reason they don't want, I think it's the older fans mainly. And this is, if that's the way they want to operate, that's perfectly fine. They seem to believe that because Pep has delivered us a lot of trophies, he's above criticism. And if that's the way you feel, that's perfectly fine. I've nothing against that. You do your thing. But for me, I analyze what I see. And when I think something's off, I'll call it out. I call a spade a spade. I speak about the 90 minutes that I just saw. I have no problem criticizing someone when I feel he could be doing something better. I don't claim ever to be a tactical genius or a tactician or that I know better than him. But when we know something's off and we've watched this team for long enough to know how good they can be, we have every right to say when we think something has to change. Now, the reason that we're not getting the same scrutiny as Tottenham Hotspur, even though we're in the exact same run of form as them, is because people are holding on to this idea that City are going to go on to a 20-game winning streak. We're just going to click for some reason out of nowhere and hit a run of form that nobody can stop, and we're the steam train that we used to be, that Arsenal are now. That won't happen, people. Jump out of reality for a second and check yourself. That's not going to happen if nothing changes. Something has to change. Pep has to approach the games differently and step aside from his stubbornness and be willing to change things as he sees it. He did not change anything in that Manchester United game except for the personnel, and only for the fact that Grealish, who came on, had a bit of aggression, a bit of energy, and a bit more determination than Phil Foden and other players who were previously on the pitch. We still wouldn't have done anything. We got one shot on target. We got one shot on target in 200 minutes of football. Something has to change, and Pep has to take some responsibility for it. I mean, Dano says in the chat, I love Pep. I love Pep. There's no one in the world right now I love more than Pep Guardiola, but it's a love-hate relationship at times because we know how crazy he is. We know for some reason how his brain operates, and the decisions he makes can sometimes be rash and not necessary. It's time to tweak things, time to fix things. Because we're running out of time. There's no more time for experimenting. I think we have to revert back to what we know best as much as possible, and that doesn't mean to take out Erling Haaland. You spoke about Erling Haaland's heat map and how he's dropping deep, and I saw that. I was at the game, and I was watching Haaland off camera. He's dropping deep. He's frustrated. He's not getting enough touches on the ball. He's not involved in play the way he wants to be. That's because he's not getting the service. A striker's natural instinct when they're not getting the ball is to drop deep and try get involved. Unfortunately, Erling, I hate to break it to you, you're not technically good enough right now to be doing that. You don't have the Harry Kane technical ability to be dropping deep, taking a first touch on the half turn, spraying a ball out to the wings, or playing a ball through for an oncoming winger. Haaland does not have that in his locker. So what do? We have to play to Haaland's strengths. We have to play to Haaland's strengths. We need our creative players further up the pitch and willing to execute the penetrative ball. They're not doing that. If you watched on Saturday, players like Bernardo Silva are getting the ball in the half turn, and you're going, right, run and pass the ball forward. He gets the ball in the half turn, then goes reverse on the turn. He turns backwards again and plays it back to a centre half or back to Rodri. And in the meantime, United or Southampton or whoever have completely filtered back in their defensive shape. And we're starting from scratch. When that whole time, Haaland is making a diagonal run. He's making a straight run. He's making an astute run to somewhere that you just need a straight ball through to unlock him. And we're not playing those balls. Pep, for some reason, has the shackles on these players. I don't know, is it because they don't want to, or is it because Pep has the shackles on them, I should say, rather. They're not being aggressive. They're not showing any enthusiasm to progress quickly. The transition from defense to attack is far too slow. Something we always had in our locker that people couldn't stop for so long was our transition from defense to attack was rapid. I don't even mean in counter-attacking sense. I just mean we can move the ball from our box to your box in a matter of seconds. And whoever our false nine or striker was will get a shot off on target. Haaland's not getting that. Alvarez won't get that. Don't call for Alvarez in the pitch. It doesn't matter who's in that role. They're not going to get the chance. They're not going to get the service. This is a team issue. This isn't a striker issue. I mean, you could talk about this one for days, really, because it's mind-boggling how we're in this position. You know, people said, "Will Haaland ruin City? Is Haaland ruining City? They're going to have to change so much. Their whole style of play is going to change." I don't think it has to change. I think there's an issue in the team. Is it a hunger thing? I'm not sure. I don't know. Joe?
I mean, while you were just going on there, I just had another read through of some of the stuff I had written down, and again, it's just too many high-profile players just not on it. And again, you raised the question: is it Pep who's not allowing them to be as expressive as they want to be, or is it simply just the players? And I think against Man United, I'd put it more on the players, especially going forward. I think Mahrez, for me, pretty wide. Should have got Malacia should have been booked ages ago in that game. I don't know how he escaped without a booking. He fouled Mahrez multiple times. Foden was 110% wide. I wasn't even sure he was on the pitch. He's another player who wasn't getting the ball. I think it was Mike Manet about half an hour into the game put up a stat that was Haaland and Foden had 2 touches each. Nathan Ake had 35 touches in half an hour. 2 touches for Phil Foden. He's not getting the ball. We just didn't use our left-hand side. We didn't use Haaland. He wasn't being found. He was dropping deep. Grealish comes on. Within 2 minutes, he scored and he's had 3 touches. He's had more touches in like 2 minutes than Foden had in half an hour. I don't understand what's going on. I mean, you can't put that down to congestion in the middle of the pitch if they're wide and they're just not receiving the ball. I mean, De Bruyne was pocketed by Fred. Frederico. Fred. Fake Brazilian. Fred from Stoke. Fred had him in his pocket for the game. And again, I got slack for this. I got slack for saying that he was average against Leeds and, you know, he'd been poor since the return of the World Cup. I got slack for this. I do go through the comments. I have read them. I did get slack, but I'm right. He's just not been good. And this is not the first time that I've said this. I get labelled for having an agenda. I'm perfectly fine if people think I have an agenda, but I don't think it's an agenda. I don't think he's been that good as of recent. He's our chief creator, and we've had 1 shot on target in the last 2 games. And now he's injured, or he's presumably injured. So, blessing in disguise, maybe. Maybe he gets a few games off to, I don't know whether he was carrying a knock. If he is and he's playing, then I don't really understand why. What's the point? I mean, it's clear that something's wrong because he's not really playing that well at the moment. But it's not good. I mean, I want to highlight Foden as well. I touched on him before, 2 touches in half an hour against Man United. His role is changing every week. His role changes from game to game to game. Sometimes he's playing on the right. Sometimes he's playing on the left. Sometimes he's playing as a wing back. He's played as an 8. He's played as a 10. He's played as a false 9. In the last 2 years, he's been all over the pitch. He's played as a left back this season, like a left back in a back 4. He's all over the place. He can't find his rhythm. He can't find a position or a role that he can build some momentum and have a good performance and build on. He had a good performance against Chelsea in the FA Cup. He was playing in midfield. What happens next? Southampton comes up. He plays in midfield. Things don't go our way. Shoved onto the wing. Ineffective. Just ineffective. He needs to find a role for Phil Foden. We all know his future's in the midfield. With the injury, if De Bruyne is injured and he does miss Spurs, I'd like to see Foden in midfield because that's, as of recent, that's probably where we've seen the best of Phil Foden, in the middle of the park, a bit further back rather than on the wing, and it allows you to get Grealish in there as well. And Mahrez is playing well. It allows you to have the players who are starting to build something. We don't have many players who are building some sort of form, let's be honest. I mean, Mahrez looked to be building something. Grealish, his involvements have started to ramp up since the break. A couple of assists against Leeds, gets a goal against United, so he's seemingly progressing into, you know, what we want to see from him. But it all just boils down to the blame's now being lumped on Haaland because he's not scoring, and he hasn't scored for a couple of games now. But it's not his fault. I think we can all sit here and agree that it's the players around him. The players around him just aren't finding him. That is the main issue going forward. And we touched on the defence. And I think the one that got me for the United game about the defence was the centre-back pairing. And the fact that Nathan Ake had 35 touches. I thought it was telling after about 10-20 minutes that Man United were more than happy to let Ake and Akanji just have the ball and play 1-2s between each other, knowing none of them are going to ping it 40 yards and set us away. Knowing that neither of them really have that in their locker or have that consistently in their locker to come bring out like 4 or 5 times a game. We have Aymeric Laporte sat on the bench who can do that. which, granted, he played in the last couple of games, but that's just bizarre to me. That's just really, really bizarre. I saw after 20 minutes it just wasn't working. United were willing to just let Ake and Akanji pass it between each other, and then as soon as we go forward, then they jump into press. When a more dangerous player had the ball who could possibly break through the lines, then they'd jump in and press. If it was with Ake or Akanji, they won't bother. They'd let them just pass it between themselves because neither of them... I think Akanji might have attempted one and he went out for a touch. He went out for a throw-in. Like... That was the game plan. It kind of played into United's hands, which is why you see the importance of a John Stones. I think going forward now, regardless of what defensive line you want to settle on, regardless of what people's preferences are, you have to have one of, if not both, of John Stones or Laporte playing, because you need that elite ball player. That is something that has been crucial for a Pep Guardiola side, is having someone who, from the back four, one of the central defenders, who can play a long ball. You know, the long balls aren't like obsolete. We're not talking, Dyche ball where he just lumps it to a target man. But long balls, having something else in your arsenal, having something else that you can go and progress up the pitch with. We can't rely on just passing it short 5-10 yards and working our way up the pitch. Playing, having 40 passes before we score a goal. That's not how football works. You can't score every single time by doing that. You need something else, which is why, again, I suppose, slightly underappreciated, both of them, really, aren't they? I mean, they don't really get their credit outside of City fans, really. I mean, especially John Stones, he's criminally underrated. No one really gives him his props, and you see how important he is. So I think going forward, you have to have one, if not both of those, when available. Obviously, that does beg the question, because the both of them aren't the most available in the world. They both have had their injury problems. I mean, John Stones gets injured out of nowhere, and to be fair, Laporte did as well since the return of Premier League football. But I don't know, it's really painful. It was a really painful watch just seeing Ake and Akanji play triangles with Edison, and then when we tried to go forward, he'd end up with Bernardo, and like you said, he'd turn back on himself and he'd end up with De Bruyne, and he'd lose it because Fred was breathing on him and Foden wasn't getting touches, and Mahrez would get it and he'd be brought down and Malacia would go unpunished. It was just frustrating. Really, really frustrating.
I know. You touched on a lot of players there, but I suppose the first one is John Stones. He is criminally underrated, and it's only when you don't have, particularly John Stones, and to a lesser extent, but definitely in the conversation, Aymeric Laporte, is how much you appreciate how important centre halves are for your transitional play. And the way we've played over the years, we've always had really good ball playing centre halves. Like the season that, or one of the seasons recently, where Stones and Diaz was the partnership, and Laporte was less favoured, and some people were suggesting Laporte was going to leave because of this. He can't eclipse, Stones and Diaz. Stones is a top ball player. Stones is so quick at picking a pass, breaking through the lines, and unlocking an oncoming runner. It's a whole team issue. And we knew this from the very beginning, that once that City's goals dry up or performances don't go our way, people are going to point the finger straight at Erling Haaland. Straight at Erling Haaland. Why isn't he getting the goals? He's a flop. He's meant to be the talisman, and he's not winning you games. It's a whole team issue, and it stems as far back as the centre halves. Akanji and Ake, whilst I did say they're good centre halves for being traditional centre halves at defending, I don't think either of them are bad at defending. But if you want to play for Manchester City and a successful Manchester City team, you need to be a really good ball-playing centre half. Ruben Diaz is less so a good ball-playing centre half, but he gets away with it. Why? Because like I said a few minutes ago, he's a top leader, and every team needs a Ruben Diaz to get through the tough moments. But John Stones, like I said, he'll play those diagonal balls instead of trying to, play to Rodri, who's right in front of you, or when Bernardo's dropping stupidly deep, play straight to Bernardo, and he'll take a half turn and go back at himself, and it's also slow and lethargic. John Stones will very regularly say, no, fuck this, I'm playing a big diagonal, switch over to Phil Foden on the wing, and all of a sudden we're in behind. The main thing for us is right now, we don't get in behind. We never get in behind. We're always facing a whole wall, a whole defensive setup that almost looks completely impossible to break down, because we're going for the exact same style of play every single time. We insist on giving to the defensive midfielder, giving to the midfielder dropping deep, letting him try to find a pass, hope a winger makes a run, hope someone drops deep to pick it up. There's no expression, there's no free-flowing football, there's no plan B, there's no different idea, there's no intuition to be like, right, this isn't working, I'm going to try something different. Lob it over the top, let Haaland have a run. Test Varane, test Luke Shaw, facing their own goal. How many times in that game did Varane have to face his own goal? I'd say very, very little times. Because every time we came on the attack, he's looking at us square on. He can just move side to side, side to side. Same with Luke Shaw, same with Casemiro. They can move side to side. They know what we're going to do. They're not put under any serious pressure. They don't have to face their own goal. We're not putting it over the top. We're not playing through balls. Easy option. It's not working. It's not working. And that stat that you gave me about Phil Foden, I didn't even know that. 2 touches in half an hour. I don't care. I get what you're saying, that he hasn't found a position that he can, really get used to and build a liking for it and get an understanding for it, But a player who like Phil Foden, who wants to be a dictating midfielder, who'll dictate creativity, dictate flow of play, he has to do more than that. He has to come looking for it. He has to show that aggression and that intuition to unlock passes, to do things when we need them, when no one else is doing them. If you want to be that big number 8, if you want to be that big number 10, come and find it. Show Pep why you should have that position. Don't hang out in the wing and be like, oh, well, I'm not a winger. I'm eventually going to be a midfielder. So if they're not giving me the ball, I'm not going to try to do anything. Come and fucking look for it and do something. While nothing else is working, you may as well try something. Phil Foden has to do a lot better. And you said it with Jack Grealish. At least when he came on, he said, nah, fuck this. Give me the ball, I'm going to run. Give me the ball, I'm going to run. Because all this passing sideways, passing backwards, dropping deep, it's doing sweet fuck all. It's doing nothing. He said, give me the ball, I'm going to, at the very least, run at Casemiro, win fouls. At the very least, run at whoever the right back was at the time and win fouls. He won 3 or 4 fouls in his time on the pitch and scored a goal. Even when we were 2-1 down, he still run direct, because he realized we were getting nowhere otherwise. Phil Foden needs to up his game. Bernardo Silva on Saturday, listen, we love Bernardo Silva, you all know this, but he's been a shambles this season. He's been a half the player we know he is. This drop and deep business is a waste of time. We don't need Bernardo Silva hovering in front of the centre halves and hanging around beside Rodri, taking up space there. We need Bernardo Silva higher up the pitch, being that high-pressing, energetic, Duracell bunny midfielder who's creative at the same time. There was nothing creative about Bernardo Silva. Nothing creative about him. He doesn't want to be here, people. We know this. That's why we said this 2 weeks ago when he dropped those comments. This is a bad time to say this, because now we know why you're not playing well, because you have no fucking interest in being here. I love Bernardo, but I don't care how good you are. If you don't want to be here, don't fucking be here. Don't play. I'd say put Phil Foden in the middle of the park and tell him, right, you want to be the big bad boy midfielder? Here's your chance, son. Gundogan can't do it right now. Bernardo's not going to do it right now because he doesn't fucking want to. You go and do it, son. Get more than 2 touches in half an hour. Make something happen. Express yourself. Be the flary, attacking player we know you can be. There needs to be a mindset change as well as tactical change. There does have to be an improvement in mindset, an enthusiasm to go and be creative. These top talents, we know they are. They're not showing an enthusiasm to be creative and try things and put pressure on defenders in situations that they haven't been in. It's so frustrating, man. It's so frustrating. The Mad Hatter says, I agree, but will City address it in time? That's the worry. Gundogan said last week there doesn't seem to be the same amount of hunger that there has been in recent seasons. Don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that. But now it makes sense because they're not playing with hunger. I said it. Only Rodri and Grealish and maybe Walker to a lesser extent looked like they gave a shit. Everybody else didn't want to be there. They'd rather be at home in bed watching it on television. They didn't want to be there. There's no enthusiasm. There's no spark. And that's not to say that there can't be. But right now what we've seen, there isn't. Cancelo poor since the return of the World Cup and poor before the World Cup. Cancelo's had his worst season in a Manchester City shirt. He has. Put the number 2 back on his back. Put 2 beside the 7. Because since we give him the 7, he's not playing like a number 7. Cancelo's pissing me off, man. These are meant to be top creative talents who, when things aren't going our way, they're meant to be top talents who know how to change things, who go, right, no, I'm going to try this out. They're not doing that. It's route 1, and route 1 is boring for us. Oh, mate.
Get that out.
Honestly, I was sitting in the away end on Saturday, and we're all saying to ourselves, listen, we must have passed the ball 500 times by now, and 400 of them were between Akanji and Ake. It's boring. It's boring. It's useless. It's so easy to control. I mean, it didn't take a genius to set up the way Ten Hag did on Saturday. All these United fans saying, Tactical masterclass from Ten Hag. You know, he out-tactic Pep, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, it doesn't take a fucking genius to set up with a low block or sit back and let City play the ball on the halfway line. It doesn't. I could do that. I could put out the pros under 15s and say, just sit deep, you know, a 1, a 3, a 5, whatever, and just don't let them play in. Easy. It doesn't take a genius, but we're not helping ourselves. Come on, mate.
You have to be a different level of toothless. This is the way I look at it. You have to be a different level of toothless to not give Luke Shaw centre back any problems. Like, Luke Shaw is not.
Beating up Luke Shaw. They're saying Luke Shaw is one of the best centre halves in the league. You gave him nothing to do.
Like, I think John Costa was only taking the piss out of him earlier. Haaland did his GQ magazine photo shoot, and John goes, "Is Luke Shaw letting him out of his pocket to do this?" Luke Shaw didn't do anything. We are not playing to anyone's strengths enough where the centre half where the centre halves of the opposition should be getting praise. You mentioned Bernardo. That man's pissing me off. He is doing my fucking tits in, right? We had a go. What was it? 2 weeks ago, you said in the stream. We had a go, but I actually think we gave him. I think we let him off very, very fucking lightly that week, right? You can see by the way he's playing now, he doesn't give a shit. He couldn't give a fuck what's going on anymore. Because like his head's completely gone. His head's been gone since the start of the season. This season, he's been poor. You can't just look at it now. He's been poor for the whole season.
Bernardo.
You've seen, yeah.
Yeah.
He's been poor for the whole season. He doesn't want to be here. I think I don't want to say he's past his sell by date. He's past his mental sell by date where he's gone, I'm not gone yet. I want to just
checked out mentally.
That's it. He doesn't care. He's checked out. He's gone. Like, and the thing is, like, obviously hindsight's 2020. You're looking back to someone going, oh, maybe we could have sold him, got a bit. We're not going to get anything from him now. Like, let's be honest. Like, we won't get nearly what he's worth now, which is a shame. But there has to be an overhaul. We're getting this guy Peroni, and I've never seen him play. I've seen his highlights. Everyone's highlights look good. Then hopefully, we're still like, aiming for Bellingham. Whether or not that gets done is another thing. Tell me anyone else. Like, are you looking at? Are you really like? I'm sorry. I'm not saying. I don't want to knock him and say that he's finished. This is nowhere near what I'm saying. He has a bright future. But I'm looking at Foden. I'm saying, what he's doing now, does that warrant a place in midfield? Like, does it? Like, on current form, does it even warrant to be starting? No one does. Like, I'm looking at Foden and going, you don't deserve to be on the pitch if this is how you're going to be playing. Grealish is a man I want on the pitch at the minute. Mahrez, weirdly enough, they're the two wingers I want on the pitch at the minute. Because Palmer's doing well. Palmer's been fucking dreadful. I'm sorry, I know he's a young player. I don't like dragging him. This is like an inside job. This is an inside job for him because, my God, he has been awful. He's like a double agent. Like, again, it's just whacking my brain. There is currently not an 11 that I'd be able to turn out and confidently say, yeah, they're going to go out and win a match because everyone's been so poor. Everyone's been so poor. Bar and Rodri, everyone's been awful. Cancelo. What the fuck? Ironically enough, actually, I think the best game he's had since he came back was United. He actually got us a little bit of flow back. He's starting to beat, man. He got his confidence back. Possibly, I haven't seen enough angles of it. Should have had a penalty. I sent it to Joe and I goes, that's a thinker, that is. Like, it looked like he just got brought down. He's finally having a bit of maybe cop on his head, says I can run with these players. He didn't have that for months. He didn't have the drive, didn't have any of it. There's so much going wrong. Like, there is so much going wrong. You're saying, again, I agree with your point on Haaland. When he's not getting involved, his natural instinct, his basic human instinct is, let's get involved. There's no service to him. There's no service to that man at all. He's feeding off scraps. The only man right now that I'd be confident enough in getting a cross into him is Grealish. Even Mahrez, better, we always say, more direct goal scoring winger. The only creative force there is Grealish. He's still been a bit, like, he hasn't been perfect since, no one's been perfect. He has had a better restart since he came back. But when you're looking at him in that team, he's not scoring the easier chances. Like, he can score. He scored against United. He's not scoring those easier chances against Leeds. He could have had 5 against Leeds. Like, there is not one perfect player that I can turn around, except for Rodri, and say every week he should be starting. Like, everyone has had a downturn in form. And you know what? People I learned how to pick it. We play to United's strengths. Let's be fair. You said it earlier. If your two centre-backs are playing 400 passes between each other, United don't care. They can just sit back and go, oh, well, we'll wait till we get this ball back. So we're going to get it eventually. Like, there is not enough dynamism. Is the word dynamism? Yeah. In the team at the minute to where you can confidently turn around and say, oh, let's just click and do something different. Let's just click and do it. You can't do that with Ake and Akanji. Like, John Stones, right now, I'm going to say, I'm going out my limb here. I'm going out my arse, right? John Stones, on current form, is the best centre-half in the country. He is the best centre-half in the country, in my opinion. He has everything. He has his defensive capabilities, his ball playing. He has ball playing of a midfielder. He's fantastic. You take him out of his team. You take someone like Laporte out. Dame, I know you've said this. I'm just reiterating it. You don't have that. You don't have the killer pass in the back. Every attack starts from the defense. You have to look at it that way. And we don't have good passing defenders at the minute. Even Diaz, again, not a good ball player. But when you have the best ball playing centre back in the world, not just in the country, in the world beside you, that goes. But we don't have any of that. We don't have any of that at all. And again, it's chopping and changing, constant shit. We don't know what tactic we're going to play. I remember the Chelsea game in the league. He went out and played Cancelo as a right winger. Who does that? Like, who was doing that? Who's taking the defender and saying, no, I'm throwing him out the wing? It doesn't work. He's not that guy. He's not that type of player. We've seen the best we've ever seen is Joao Cancelo has been him dropping into the midfield. It's been him dropping into the midfield. We've said that for years. Going from his fullback to an inverted role where he's playing beside Rodri, playing beside Bernardo, that allows Bernardo to actually move forward and not play like a fucking ghost man. Do you know when you'd be in training years ago and you'd have the ghost player who could pass to and from one team? That's just Bernardo at the minute. The guy's just there. He's not mentally there. The guy's physically there. He doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care less, man. It's wild because I'm like you. I don't want to turn around and have to listen to this shit of, oh, there's no hunger there. You don't fucking say that. You don't say that when you're trailing 8 points. You don't say this type of shit like, I don't want to be here. What a fucking stupid thing to say during the season. I know he's depressed. He got KO'd the World Cup because his team are absolutely arse. He got KO'd of that. And he came back a bit annoyed and said, no, I'm getting this on my chest. You don't fucking do that. I'm jumping between player to player here because I can't keep a right mind track. You don't do that shit. And that's what's been going on now for the last 2-3 months, maybe? 2-3 months? Is that when this little thing started just before the World Cup? Brentford was a really bad thing to go out on as well. Like, there's no doubt if we had won Brentford, or if we had beaten Brentford, sorry, my grammar, if we had beaten Brentford, I'd say there would have been a bit of a more positive mindset coming back in. But no, there isn't. It's from top to bottom at the minute. This might sound like more of a reaction. This isn't doing my gloom. I've not conceded the league. I've not conceded anything yet. But right now, top to bottom, fucked at the minute.
I know, I get your frustration and I share it. I genuinely share it. Sid says, I love your passion. If only you could share it with some of our players. Some of the players aren't showing passion, and that's just, we have to call it out. You have to call it out. When you're watching players who don't, or who look half-arsed, you have to say they look half-arsed. I want to make a point on this. Dano says, I will scream at my TV if we don't test Lloris with at least 10 shots on target. He is shit. This is something that really, really boiled my piss on Saturday morning, which was our fear of shooting. We want to walk the ball into the net. We want to pass our way to the white line in between the posts and just roll it over. There were so many situations where I'm looking at the ball, I'm looking at the player on the ball, and I'm saying, just shoot. The whole away end's going, shoot, shoot, shoot. No, make the easy pass. No, one more pass. There's a fear of shooting. Think of who was in nets on Saturday morning. David De Gea. How many blunders has he had in his career and this season? I mean, it's not so long ago. One went between his legs and he put it into his own net. This guy has blunders in him. Fire shots at him. When I say do something different, be more intuitive, be more expressive, be more creative, I don't just mean, go and try to do a massive solo run, do step overs and got a Messi and got a Messi and got a Messi. I don't mean do that. I mean, fire a long range shot at De Gea and see how he deals with that. Put a bit of fear into him. Make Casemiro, make the centre halves know, right, we're sitting off them too much to now at the point where they're able to test De Gea. We need to do something different. Make them come out a bit more. There was none of that. We're on the edge of the D, on the edge of their box, and we're still passing side to side to side. Akanji, Ake, Rodri, Bernardo. It's like a 4-piece. It's like a boy band. We'll just pass between the four of us. It's not shoot, man. Shoot at goal. Shoot on sight. If there's an opening on goal and you feel you're not going to break down the defense, shoot on sight. Kevin De Bruyne has long-range screamers in his locker. Rodri has them in his locker. I think Foden does too. There's so many players in that squad can shoot, and they did not test De Gea enough. We're talking about shots on target. If you're not going to create them, force them. If you're not going to get them behind to walk the ball into a shot on target, force your shots on target. Give them something to think about. They were able to sit on the edge of their box comfortably knowing that we won't shoot. We won't do a long range. Kyle Walker did one in the last play of the first half. And I was going, that's refreshing. That is refreshing. A shot. It didn't hit the target, but he showed some balls. He had a shot. He had a pop. And De Gea went, oh, that nearly got me. It didn't. But if you get our top midfielders and our top technical players who go, right, Casemiro, if you're going to sit back off me, I'm going to have a pop at your keeper. We didn't even do that. That's what I'm saying. When there's no aggression, there's no energy. We're not pushing. We're not trying anything other than trying to walk our way into the goal. We can't do that. Teams know how to defend with a low block. They know how to stop City passing from side to side. The blueprints have been out for years. We all have a copy, double platinum copy. It's like I said, it does not take a genius to stop City when we're playing the way we did on Saturday. Big up Ten Hag for the win and whatnot, but you're not a genius for stopping us. You're really not. Hit us on the counter. Jesus, you're a genius. Wow, I never thought of that. It's City on the counter. Fuck, why didn't I think of that? Fucking hell.
That's why you're not a manager.
Shoot at De Gea. Pest the fucker. He had nothing to do. The guy has mistakes left, right, and centre in him. We know this. He's a calamity at times. Bloody hell, man. Bloody hell. Listen, there's nearly 40 people in the building. I forgot to remind you. If you haven't already done so, please do hit the like button. We're having a therapy session here. We're getting a lot off our chest, as I'm sure you can say. There's a lot of pent-up frustration, and when I record those solo videos, I can't roar on my own at the camera and get my message across. So it's nice to have people to talk. I'm reading your chats as they're coming in, so just smash the like button and do subscribe if you're new. But you know what I'm saying, people? If you can't even fire a long-range shot when nothing else is working, you're really, really struggling. It's a lack of enthusiasm and a lack of hunger. If you're playing for a team that decides to have all the ball like City, and you're playing against a team who allows you to have all the ball, you need to switch up when you're not making your way through. You need to switch up and just start trying things. And when someone made a chat here saying it's not a fair comparison to say Grealish and Foden. Yeah, Ado says, Hugh, I get what you're saying, but Jack Grealish has different tactic instructions compared to Foden. That is not a fair assessment of Foden. Honestly, Foden was probably told to stick to the sideline. I believe you're right. I believe Foden was told to stick to the sideline. But a player of Foden's quality, when he very quickly realizes that sticking to the sideline is getting him nowhere, I'd expect him to show the intuition and the brains to say, right, this isn't working. I'm going to have to take it into my own hands and try something different. Because him sticking on the sideline, as Joe said, got him 2 fucking touches. A player of his quality should have more than 2 fucking touches. Come and look for it. Make something happen. A player as good as Foden is what I'm saying. There's more expectation on Foden because we know how good he is. If the sticking to the sideline ain't working, come infield. And if it works, Pep will say, right, fair play. You know, you made something happen. You showed the balls to make something happen. If it doesn't work, he's sitting in the situation he is now where we're criticizing him for only having 2 touches. I don't know. I mean, Joe, what are your thoughts on any of that? The shooting from range didn't even happen. Foden has to show more, I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for here? He has to show more...
Aggression.
I don't know. I've lost.
I mean,
go on.
I want to say agree with you, but I actually don't. He can't take it upon himself to go against Pep Guardiola's tactical instructions, because that doesn't go down with the manager well at all. Even if it's not working, he's stubborn. He will tell you to do a role and do exactly what he wants. Otherwise, you'll be off the pitch. There was a few years ago now. It always sticks in my head when I think of people saying that players should take it upon themselves to change their role and what they do in games. Is there was a Thierry Henry bit on Sky a few years ago where he said when he was playing for Barcelona, he was on the left wing and he wanted to come central so he could pick up the ball. He wanted to drift so he could get on the ball, and he scored, and at half time he got blasted for not sticking on the left hand side of the pitch. That's what Pep Guardiola does. If he has an instruction for you, you follow it or you don't play. So I don't know whether I fully agree with Foden having to change up what he was doing, because I don't know whether he has that freedom to do it. I don't think any of the other players have the freedom to do it. He's a stubborn man, Pep Guardiola. If he wants you to do something, you do it, or you don't play.
Can I jump in? Can I?
You can.
Can I jump in there? I want to say I fully get what you're saying, and I know you're right. I know you're spot on when you're saying that Pep is stubborn, and you're referring to the point that Thierry Henry made where he was pulled off for not sticking to what Pep wants. But Thierry Henry did that in a Pep system that was working, that was functioning, that was penetrating, that was scoring goals. They won that game. They were perfectly fine. Pep just said, right, if we're going to win games and you don't want to play my role or the role that I want you to play in a winning team, you won't play. But when Pep is clearly running out of ideas, he doesn't know what to do, that's when you take it upon yourself. What's the worst that's going to happen? Foden's going to say, this is why I did this. I won't do it again. But at the very least for Foden, he'll try something and he'll show balls. I think Pep would admire that as well. I think you just need.
I don't think
I've
we
got
get much
I've got the
admiration.
stats. I've got the stats in front of me from the United game. I did have a search while Revel, while you were going on about the United game, and it's worrying. It's really worrying. Phil Foden had 15 touches in an hour's worth of football. 15 in an hour. He had 15 touches of the ball. That's terrible. Of course, there is obviously there's both sides to the argument, isn't there? There's the argument that he has to do more himself to come and find the ball because he wants to be on the ball, and he's that sort of player that will make things happen when he's on the ball. But again, there is that other hand of Pep's told him to stay wide and stretch the pitch, and again that falls back onto the centre half issue if there's no one there to ping it out to him to pick him out when we're just playing, that 4 pivot of Rodri, Bernardo, Ake and Akanji. None of them are switching it out to pick him out, so there's obviously that issue as well. And Grealish comes on in half an hour, he had 24 touches. 24, that's 9 more touches, and he only played half an hour. There's another worrying one here. Haaland had 20 touches in 90 minutes. Granted, that's about what he was getting anyway. But a lot of those touches, they came in deep positions. And to put it into perspective, to go back to my hater roots, Kevin De Bruyne, possession lost 20 times. He lost the ball as many times as Haaland had a touch. That is shocking. That is dreadful. That is disgusting. That is
Can't be alright.
That's disgusting.
We've got someone throwing the ball away 20 times, right? We've got someone throwing away the ball 20 times again, and then we have NSYNC at the back. It's just not fucking working.
It's not
what
going
are you meant
well.
to do? What are you meant to do? I don't want to turn around and give Pep a dig out. Well, man, I losing the ball 20 times on the pitch. I'm sorry. You cannot control that as a manager, right? I'll give him some stick. Pep gets some stick off me. We all know here he's not perfect. But by God, when that is what you're working with, there's only so much you can say before you go, you know what, this is a settled system. When you have someone who can either lose the ball 20 times a game or go and get 4 assists in a game, that's not good. You don't know who you're getting every week. You don't know what type of player you're getting every week. Like, the last time De Bruyne has been consistently good was at the end of last season. Like, consistently good. Where you turn around and say he was dropping 8 and 9s constantly. Even at the start of this season, he was good. That's gone. That's gone. I mean, I don't know what to say about that shit. Like, as someone who I used to consider a leader, who I used to think could just reef City by the scruff of the neck and say, you know what, go on. He doesn't do that anymore. And
He's the vice captain. He's the vice captain. He needs to do that. The vice captain. Where we are now sitting here and saying the vice captain of the football club is not a leader. The vice captain, who more often than not wears the armband, because the club captain is sat on the bench and he's probably going to leave this season. Our vice captain is not a leader. Ruben Diaz last year, I'm pretty sure Ruben Diaz was the vice captain last year. I don't know why on earth that changed. He's much more of a leader. He's a more natural leader than Kevin De Bruyne. But just because Kevin De Bruyne, he's old, he's been there, I get it, he's experienced. But if we're saying that the vice captain, who is essentially the captain, because the real captain doesn't even play, if the vice captain isn't a leader, that's a problem. That's a big, big problem. That we have someone who we trust with the armband to not be a leader. And I know you could turn around and say, well, David Silva had the captain's armband, and he wasn't really much of a vocal leader. He was a leader by example. Whenever he went out onto the pitch, he played to an exceptionally high level for a very long time. He was always a leader on the pitch. Again, with Kevin De Bruyne, we raised the point. We don't know whether he's going to get you a hat-trick of assists or lose the ball 20 times. We don't know what we're going to get from him. We genuinely don't know. We're relying on him to, in the last couple of games, one against Southampton, one against Man United, where we've created absolutely nothing. We're kind of almost, it shouldn't be the case, but we are relying on this guy who has the label of the best midfielder in the world, one of the Premier League greats, one of the City greats, some people's greatest in those categories if they really feel that way. We're talking about this guy and going, we don't know what we're going to get. And of course, we shouldn't be hanging our hat on him and going, listen, mate, you need to pull something out of your arse because we are struggling. That's slightly unfair. It shouldn't all be heaped on him. But that's the sort of play we look to, where people will say, or, you know, if you ask the question, right, who is City's best player? The answer that you're going to get from most people is probably Kevin De Bruyne. So when we're in the mud, we are in the mud. When we're in the mud and we're looking for something, for someone to come and bail us out, more often than not, it has been him. But right now, he's not bailing us out. In fact, he's putting us in more trouble than we are in already, and we're in a lot of trouble, even without him just turning over the ball and not creating anything. We're in a lot of trouble anyways, because we can't keep the ball from going in the back of our net at the moment, which is not his problem. So it's just, it's worrying. It's very worrying. I did sort of vent my frustrations in the Discord, and I mean, I really like Kerwin, but he told me that I should stop whining and I'm making a bigger deal out of anything than I need to be. But it's like, and it's the excuse of, we were shit 20 years ago, so why are you complaining now? The standards have changed. This isn't 20 years ago when we're trying to stay in the division. This is, we're going for trophies when we're losing 2 games in a row, which is, again, I'm looking back at my notes. We haven't lost 2 games in a row since the start of last season, where we lost the Community Shield to Leicester and away against Spurs. That's the last time we lost consecutive games. And that's happened. That's worrying. That's very worrying. If I can't express my concerns about the current state of the football and the players just in general, if I can't say that I have issues with stuff going on, then I don't know anymore. What can I say? There is clearly something massively wrong with what's going on for a multitude of reasons. I mean, I want to go back on the defence, because as you touched on the centre-back partnership from a couple of years ago now, the Stones and the Diaz, it's like, we, out of all them, I said, what was it, 11 different back fours that we have seen this season, I think there's only one centre-back partnership that we haven't seen. And in my opinion, it is my preference. My preference going forward for the rest of this season would be Stones and Laporte next to each other in the middle as the centre halves. That would be my preference. I'm pretty sure that's the only one we haven't seen this season. Like, it's so messed up. There are so many sort of different avenues that you can go down as to why we're just not playing well, and it's all across the pitch. Again, there's no one single factor. It's not just the manager. It's not just the players. It's not the lack of creativity. It's everything. There is something wrong in every department that is contributing towards just being in a... It's not a terrible run of form, but it's still a poor run of form, considering, you know, we've got a gap to try and close down. We've got a gap of 8 points to try and close down. And where I'm looking at the last 7 games, we won 4. That's about half. We're winning half our games. That's not going to close the gap. If anything, the gap's just going to get bigger.
I know, man. You're spot on. I think you're voicing the frustrations of a lot of the people in the chat here as well. And with Kevin De Bruyne, yeah, whether you like it or not, he's not a leader. Beyond Belief says KDB leads by example on the field. It's just the example isn't that great right now, and I get that. When he is playing to the flawless level that we know he can, yeah, he is leading by example. But when he's not playing to the flawless level, he can honk. He can really fucking honk. And people say, "Oh, but David Silva." David Silva was flawless for 99% of his appearances. I actually can't think of a game ever where the game finished and I said, "Jesus, David Silva stunk today." He really led by example.
There was times where he annoyed you. There was times where he annoyed you where he just wouldn't shoot. He tried to square it when he was in where there was the goal open. I remember that one against United in the Carabao Cup semi-final, where the goal's open and he tries squaring it. That would really, really piss you off. But it wasn't. The rest of the game wasn't dreadful. The rest of the game was like, he was really good.
That's what I'm saying. He was almost flawless for most of his appearances. So you could say, right, he is leading by example. He is being creative. He is being expressive. De Bruyne isn't that. De Bruyne isn't the same as David Silva. De Bruyne has a responsibility to be a genuine leader. I feel like if he does shout, people aren't going to take him seriously because that's just not in his. It's not in his personality.
Let me talk.
Let me talk. Barry says, Hugh for team talk. I think that's Pep's worst nightmare. I don't think Pep wants me anywhere near his dressing room. I'd go against pretty well.
Much worse. You could have Rodolfo Borrell in there.
I was watching a City Extra stream earlier on, and Jordan made a good point, or it was kind of a funny point. He says that City should re-employ Fabian Delph. They should re-employ him.
The basics. The basics.
Just employ him to say one word. Pay him big cash to just say one word. Whenever Pep tries to overthink, yeah. Whenever Pep's like, okay, we need to do this, that, Fabian Delph just goes, basics. And Pep goes, okay. just employ Fabian Delph.
Little baldy man. Yes.
Listen to the bald man. I get the point. Pep needs to pull her in a little bit and go back to the basics of football. Big up Fabian Delph. But listen, we haven't got too long left, but I do want to touch on the title race. We've kind of had a therapy session here, people. We've talked it out, and we've talked about what we're not happy with, and we've offered some solutions as to maybe how it could be resolved and how it could be fixed. And we can only, as fans, sit here and hope that it does get fixed. That's all we can do. But it's always good to have these conversations. Let us have the conversation that isn't very comfortable right now, and that is the title race. It is the fact that we're 8 points behind Arsenal. Joe gave the staggering statistic that we're winning half of our games. That is not champions form. Half of your games is not champions form. I mean, whatever about not playing well, if you're still winning games dirty and you're getting those what they call champions wins, fair enough. You know, you're grinding them out. When we did go on our 21 game winning streak and our 15 game winning streaks and whatnot over the years, they weren't all pretty. Some of those wins were ugly as fuck, but we still got them. We're not even getting them. The title race, 8 points behind. We have to play Spurs. We have to play Wolves and the Arsenal in the Cup. Spurs away, then Villa at home. Villa at home won't be easy. Good evening. Arsenal away, Forest away, and then we're into Champions League talk. That is not easy, lads. That is not easy. It's not a case of right now we click 14-game winning streak. We may not see a winning streak. How are we feeling about the title race?
If something changes, we get something drastic, some kind of drastic change, or maybe a couple of players, doesn't have to be all of them, even just a couple of key players pull up their socks and go, we have to fucking win this. We have to start fucking winning. If we want to get these titles, we win. Then the title race is not over. It's far from over. Come on, like, you're looking at a team of 1-4 in the last 5 here. You know what they can do. If they decide to do that, they're winning it. In my opinion, it might be a biased viewpoint. But if those players who I know can do well and the rest of the country and the rest of the teams in that league know can do well, there's nothing stopping them. There's nothing stopping them. But again, that's not the team they are at the minute. Something has to change. If something drastic changes, if we just, even, like you said, dirty wins, champions wins, like you think back all those years ago, Huddersfield, right? You think back to fucking Southampton the same season. Those goals in the last few minutes of games that win you that stuff. I haven't seen that all season. I'm sorry, I haven't seen that all season. We're not that same team, but we can be that same team. If that comes back, no one's stopping us. I'm sorry, but it has to change, and it has to change now. Like, again, if you want to go on a win and run that we keep speaking about, the magical win and run that just kind of magically pops up from City every year, you have to start it now. I'm sorry.
Joe, put a poll in the chat if you would. Say, can City still win the Premier League? I want to know just the general consensus. There's 45 people in the building, so if you could all hit your vote on Joe's poll, he's going to put in now in a sec. It's just a yes or no. Can City still win the Premier League? And smash the like button if you haven't done so already, and do subscribe if you're new to the channel. Paul Jones says, go on a run and win the league. Arseholes, I assume you're referring to Arsenal, aren't even that good of a team. Mate, they're pretty good. Paul, they're pretty good.
Aren't even that good. Like.
They're a good team. They just haven't had a proper stumbling block yet. They haven't played against a team who has really brought it to them, you know? They play very much like we have when we were at our best, and no one has brought it to them. Teams got sick of us bullying them for years and years and years, so they started to say, fuck it, we're going to bring it to City. We're going to get in their faces. And that has kind of built up to this demise, or small demise of Manchester City's success so far. But listen, as far as the title race goes, I believe we're still in it. My vote goes for yes, we can still win it. Do I think this magical run of form is going to come and we're going to win 20 games in a row? No, I think we will drop more points. I think a massive telltale in how this title race plays out. It is a title race, by the way. Someone's saying in the chat, Beyond Belief says it's not a title race, we're on halfway through. It's a title race based on the fact that we're 8 points behind them and we're racing to catch them up. If you're racing to catch anybody, it's a title race. It's a race. It's a race. The big telling tale will be that game in the Emirates on February 15th. We have to win every game between now and then get to that game and say, right, here we are. This is the test. This is the hit out. This is where we see our Arsenal made of the balls that people are making them out to have, or do they crumble when they come up against the original big dogs, or for the last 5 years, the big dogs of Manchester City? That's what I want to know. Arsenal they've passed pretty well every test this season, bar United away. They haven't come up against us. We're not playing our best, but they haven't come up against us. That's a big one for them. 3-way title race, contrary to what Saeed says. Yeah, Saeed believes United in the title race, and they are too.
They are.
I think they are too.
That's not sugarcoat it. They are. I mean, what? They're a point behind us. 2 points behind us.
We have to beat Arsenal in the Emirates. If Arsenal get a draw in the Emirates and they win every game leading up to that game, it's close to curtains. It's very close to curtains. And Philip Hughes says, still all to play for. It will get harder for Arsenal the closer they get. That's what I'm saying. And this is what we said at the start of the season, even when Arsenal were looking great at the start of the season, the same way they still are now, was when it does get to those last 10, 15 games, particularly the last 5, 10, and the kettle is really fucking boiling. The pressure's really on. You know, they have to go to places like Everton. I don't know if they've been there yet, but you know what I'm saying. Relegation teams that are fighting for their lives, and Arsenal have to go there and still play their game, still pick up 3 points. Do they have that? I'm not saying they don't, but do they have it? We don't know. We've been in the pressure situations. We've seen out these title races. We've finished these title races. We've gone to the tough venues. We've done this. Can Arsenal do it? Can they do it when they do come up a stumbling block? Let's say we do beat them in the Emirates and we do win every game leading up to that, and all of a sudden we're 5 points behind and we still have to play them at home. They're then saying, fuck, we have to go to the Etihad. They've just beaten us in the Emirates. Losing the Etihad is 2 points. And then they're saying we have to go to the likes of West Ham, Wolves, Southampton, these games that no one wants at the end of the season. No one wants to go to the relegation dogs in the last 5, 10 games because they will nick something. They're ready to bite. They need to. They can't sit back and let you play your football. They won't let you look pretty on camera. They'll come in your face and say, we are fighting for our lives. You will earn these 3 points. You were about to say MCFC. AFC, man, you're a troll. You're a troll. You're about to say, no, you won't catch me, man. You won't catch me lacking. But you know what I'm saying, man. So much can change in a few games. Beyond Belief says, keep the faith boost. That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. For all of you Arsenal fans who think the race is over, for all of you City fans who think the race is over, which I really hope there isn't many. I don't think there is many. One game can change everything. Say United beat Arsenal this weekend. You know, Arsenal then go, oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. We've slipped up here. Maybe we aren't as bulletproof as we thought we were. It's a mentality thing. It's a mentality thing. You can play as well as you want, but if you don't have that pressure, resilient mentality, you ain't winning shit, brother. You ain't winning shit. I promise you that. I promise you that. But with that said, I do want to refer back to everything we said. In our own house, in our own home, we have problems. But we've had problems. We've fixed problems. We had a therapy session. We got it off our chests. We said it all. We know. We think we know how to fix it. And I'd like to think Pep has had a look in the mirror and said, maybe I need to trim my bald head a little bit, go back to bald Pep, fix things up a bit, and start to put the burners on. Put the kettle on boil and get it up to 100 degrees. Let's start burning Arsenal a little bit. Let them get a bit worried, because right now we're nothing to worry about. Right now we aren't. This is a walk to the title for Arsenal. Listen, people. Listen to what I'm saying. I feel better now that we've had this therapy. I feel better that we've had the conversation. Joe, tell me the results of the poll after you've said your piece in the title race. I'm ranting on a little bit, but I feel better. I feel amped up. You know what I'm saying? The energy's high now. I feel a lot better. We're going to win the Premier League. We're going to win the league. League's over.
I mean, you've just got to kind of pick it apart piece by piece. I mean, if we do go to the Emirates still in the race, which I imagine that... Listen, I'm looking at Arsenal. I don't care if I might be overreacting. I'm looking at Arsenal the same way that I have looked at Liverpool over the last sort of 3-4 years. So I am not expecting them to drop points whenever I watch them. Whenever they are playing, I'm fully preparing myself and bracing myself for them to pick up 3 points and move on. That's just my expectation, because I don't want to be let down in the hope that a team will take something off them. When it's Arsenal United, when Arsenal go play Man United, I have no hope for Man United. I know they're just beating us, but I am fully expecting Arsenal to go and do the business, because Arsenal's home record is they haven't lost. They are in that Liverpool-esque Anfield home record of they haven't lost. They've only dropped points once, and that was against Newcastle. That is something that is something that we're talking about, going and getting 3 points from the Emirates. As it stands right now, we'd be the first. We'd be the first team to go and beat them in their ground this season.
We'll do it. We'll do it.
Again, we are capable. But again, something has to change, something has to give. We have to change something. There has to be some sort of shift. Of course, I know we're playing them in the FA Cup, but I think I'm looking at this from the point of view with the FA Cup. They're out of the Carabao Cup. With the FA Cup and the Europa League, I think Arsenal are right now with eight points ahead. I think they're in the mode of, we're going to make 11 changes for the cup match. We're going to make 11 changes when the Europa League comes around on a Thursday, and what will be will be. If we lose, we lose. We don't care. Because I truly think they're going to go for this Premier League, because they are in the driver's seat. It is in their hands. Even if we beat them twice, they'd still be 2 points clear. So the only thing we can do is keep winning. It's in Arsenal's hands. It's theirs to lose right now. And again, I think that they'll do exactly what they did in the Cup against Oxford. They'll make 11 changes, or as many changes as they can to that 11. And if they lose because their squad isn't good enough, so be it. They want the Premier League, and they'll take the Premier League, which it can backfire. Because if they do slip up in the Premier League and they lose that, then they've just forfeited the other cup competitions and then trophyless, which can happen. It can happen, but I don't think Arsenal really care. I think they'll go for this Premier League. And again, that match at the Emirates is the big one. I think we have to beat them twice. I don't think it's a case of we have to, we can draw and a win, just don't lose to them. I think we have to beat them twice. 8 points, we take 6 off them. We have to beat them twice, and that starts with going to their place first. But again, they haven't lost yet. So I am worried. I'm very worried going there at the moment. But again, I know we can flip the switch. And I think that there is every chance. It's too early to say it's over. If we don't beat Spurs and Arsenal go and beat Man United, I think I'm ready to call it. I think if that happens, if we don't beat Spurs and Arsenal pick up 3 points against Man United, I think I'm ready to call it. I think that it's just over. We just can't expect to go on and win the title if that happens. But that hasn't happened yet. So I'm just kind of, clinging on by my fingernails to some sort of title race. Because we're not even halfway in. We're 18 games in. We're 1 game off the halfway stage. It's not over. Arsenal can bottle it. It'd be interesting to see, again, we talk about the end of the season. This Arsenal playing the same 11 players week in, week out. We've seen it with Liverpool over the years. Of course, this is in the future, but it can drain. It can cause a drop-off in performance by playing the same 11 week in, week out. Every single game, it can cause a bit of a drop-off. So again, it's not a test they need to really pass, because, they've passed every test that put in front of them. So, I expect them to pass every other test that they come through, so... But again, that's the only thing that I'm clinging on to, is end of the season when everyone's absolutely knackered, when we somehow pull results out of the bag. Arsenal may not do that because they haven't been in that situation. So I'm clinging on. It is possible. And the poll says it's possible as well. 30 votes, 77% saying yes, or 76%.
Go on, lads. Go on. Listen, I hear what you're saying, Joe, but Joe's usually much more of a realist than I am. I like to get ahead of myself, and Rebel's probably a bit more like me in that sense, that we like to go, come on, we can still win this.
No, you get ahead of yourself in a positive sense, going, we're going to win the league. He gets ahead of himself in a negative sense where he goes, it's over. The world's ended.
I haven't done it yet. But the 17th of January 2023, I've not yet conceded anything. I didn't concede that we were going to lose the league to Liverpool till January that year. we were like 17 points behind them. I hadn't conceded yet, so we're grand for now. I think personally, we'll be alright. Don't be worried about.
Renners makes the point that I was kind of circling around, was Arsenal was 10 points clear off top 4 last season, and they dropped off. That's what I'm saying. This Arsenal team, yes, they've added Jesus, they've added Zinchenko, and they know about winning leagues, but as a bulk, as a whole, as a unit, this Arsenal team have experienced bottling. Now, they can use that to their advantage and say, we're not going to let that happen again. We're going to see it out this time. Or else, deja vu strikes, baby. Deja vu strikes. And you bottle it again. That's what I'm saying, man. Don't give up. People in the chat say the fight at the end. Huh?
Go on. No, go on.
No. I was going to round it up. What are you going to say?
They've added Zinchenko and Jesus, but have they added a set of balls? Have they added a set of cojones? That's the question.
Zinchenko has cojones.
Look, they've got a couple of pips. They haven't got the balls. They haven't got the balls just yet. We haven't shown off that they have the balls. We're going to find out what they do. Do you think...
The Arsenal fans, they have a fucking set of bollocks on them. They will not...
rocking them 20 minutes late with a police escort.
Right, listen, we're
Listen.
gonna wrap it up. I think, people. We've had our title talk. We've had our tactic talk, or at least our therapy session. All I'm saying is, I don't think it's over. I think there's a route. There's an obvious way we can still win this, but it's up to us. It's up to us to do it. We can't be relying on other clubs and other teams to do it for us. It's not over. We're not at the halfway mark, as Joe said. One game at a time. New York City says, "Let's do this." Exactly. Just keep supporting the lads. Don't allow our fan base to turn toxic. Don't allow rival fans to create chaos in our camp. Keep supporting. Have the conversations about tactics. Complain when you're not happy with something or a decision Pep has made or a selection Pep has made. But don't give up. Never, ever give up. It's not done till it's done. And if there's any team in this league that's going to go to the Emirates, off or on form, and rattle Arsenal, it's Manchester City. I promise you that. It's Manchester City. Take my word. Listen, there's still 35 of you in the building. I think we hit 50 at one point. So big up to all of you who've come in and shown love tonight. I know we don't stream as regularly as we used to, but good news. We're back tomorrow night, same time, 10:30, for a Spurs preview. I couldn't find a Spurs fan in time. I was going to ask Toby, but it slipped my mind. So you'll see the three of us back here again tomorrow night at 10:30. Joe's going to the game, so he can tell us all his thoughts on his trip his upcoming trip to the Etihad. He hasn't been since last May. And we'll just talk about Spurs, what we want to see, what we should expect, what needs to happen, what can we expect from Spurs. No, a masterclass, no doubt. And listen, if we're going to win this league, we got to win Thursday. But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it tomorrow night, 10:30. I might do a video as well tomorrow at some point. But if not, you can definitely expect us to be back here at 10:30. Tedder says smash the likes. Exactly. If you haven't done so already, smash the likes on your way out. If you are watching it on playback, smash the like as well, because it does massively help. As it stands, we're 90 subscribers. 90. Just that 90 off the big 5K. So when we hit 5K, it'll be a big, big celebration. Big love to all of you for your continued support. And we'll see you tomorrow night, the three of us again at 10:30. Be there. Set your notifications. Come with your thoughts for Spurs. It's a big one. Keep the faith. Good night and God bless. Wrap her up, young Joseph.
Listen to your heart. Tell me who you wanna be. We can always start to believe. Listen to your heart. Tell me that you understand. 'Cause you are the one for me. If you just believe, 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 believe. Listen to your heart, 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 heart. Listen to your heart, 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 heart. Listen to your heart. Tell me who you wanna be. We can always start to believe. Listen to your heart. Tell me that you understand. 'Cause you are the one for me. If you just believe. If you just believe. If you just believe. If you just believe. Listen to your heart. 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 Tell me who you wanna be. We can always start to believe. Listen to your heart. Tell me that you understand. 'Cause you are the one for me. If you just believe.